Well, good day viewers. Happy New Year. Today we have a 2012 Honda CR-V with a 2.4 and it's got a noise in the engine, and I've narrowed it down to the alternator. It sounds loudest at the alternator. I've removed the overflow bottle that just pulls out of there, tucked it off to the side to look to see what's involved in changing this alternator. I'll start it up so you can hear the noise. I don't know how well the camera's going to pick it up, but there's the noise. Loudest on the alternator with step stroke. There's no throttle controls on this, so I can't rev it up from here. Well, we're going to take the Serpentine belt off and spin it just to see if we can isolate it. So I removed the bracket from down here where the overflow bottle sits, two 6mm bolts, and I release the tensioner, move it in this way, use a Serpentine belt tool or a spanner, and pull the belt out, and I tucked it up behind here. And spinning these pulleys, they're nice and smooth, but when I spin the alternator with the stethoscope on it, you can hear the bearings are rough in the alternator. So I'm hoping I can get this alternator out through this front corner here. I might have to take this pulley off to get a little bit more clearance, but we'll wait and see until we get the alternator unbolted. So let's disconnect the negative battery cable. So it does come out of there. There are two bolts on the bottoms, 8mm bolts, and one on the top. This one's seized in here, so spray some penetrating fluid on there. I did have to take the two pulleys off, and there's a nut in the back of the tensioner bearing that will fall down, so make sure you capture that nut because you're going to need to put that back in. And I've moved the turn signal bulb out of the way, and it just sneaks out of there. There's a 10mm nut with a 6mm thread for the battery cable and one electrical plug wire for the monitoring circuit, I would imagine, voltage regulation. But there's the alternator off. Doesn't sound bad here, but you can hear it with the stethoscope. So we're going to replace the alternator, reverse the procedure to install a new one. So there's a little wire retaining clip on the back of the alternator that needs to be removed and transferred to the new one. I'm using a Wilson reman. That's about all that's available here. Looks the same. So we're going to transfer this bracket to the new alternator and then reinstall it. So there's the old alternator mounted in the vise. When I spin it, you can hear it. But this bolt is seized in here, so we're going to put some penetrating fluid on it and try and spin it out with an impact gun. So make sure you, after you put the alternator down in place, before you bolt it back up, there's a nut that goes in the back of the tensioner that falls down, and you have to get it in there. It's in a little hexagonal boss, so it can't turn, but it'll fall out, and you can't get it in with the alternator in place. I also found it easier to reattach the wires than that retaining clip before mounting the alternator in its place. Put that parking light back in. So there's the alternator back on and running and nice and quiet, but it's not charging. See if the alternator warning light is on the dash. The original alternator was charging. The warning light's on. Where's the battery indicator light? Down here. Right there. Let's see if it goes off when I start it. It goes off. Let's go check that charging system again. Get my voltmeter that's screwed up. 12.32. Try another voltmeter. So measuring the voltage right at the back of the alternator with this long probe, 12.32. Oh, I hate when I put on a new part and it's defective. And now it's New Year's Day and everything is frickin' closed. Well, let's see if they even have one in stock. Well, I'm just confirming it with another voltmeter here. But what I noticed was when I first started it up, it was charging and then it stopped charging. Now it's down to 12.2. So I'm going to try this again. Well, this time I'm going to start it while I record it. 12.13. What I did last time, but then it gradually ramps down to like 12.2. So I would say it has a defective voltage regulator in it. Well, wonderful. It's odd that the charge indicator light on the dash is not on. Maybe it has to drop below 12 volts or something. So it turns out that that's a normal condition. That's why the battery warning light wasn't on. It was charging, but this is electronically controlled, and that little wire going to the alternator is actually a Lin Bus wire, and the PCM controls it based on the load detection unit, which is this device here on the negative battery cable. It's also Lin Bus. It'll let the voltage drop as low as 12.2 to 12.3. and then it'll ramp it back up again. Now it's charging just fine, but it must have been just because of a warm battery. So we're going to ship this one, let it go. Seems to be working just fine now.